Chosen one, sit down right now. Whatever you're doing, whatever is pulling at your attention, release it. What I am about to speak over your life is not a suggestion. It is a verdict. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He can see what is coming. And what is coming at your life is massive. It all shifts in the next 24 hours. The stagnation, the warfare, the confusion that has had its hands around your throat. But this is the part that matters most. It is not shifting because of luck, because of timing, because of circumstance. It is shifting because of what you have already done in this season. Think back to that moment this week when everything in you wanted to collapse, to react, to abandon the silence and let the chaos pull you under. But you didn't. You held. You walked away when every nerve in your body told you to stay and fight. You chose restraint when retaliation was available. You chose stillness when the world was screaming at you to move. You thought that was weakness. Heaven recorded it as warfare. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not surface this for you. God did. This is a divine appointment that was written into the architecture of this season before your name was spoken over you. You are standing at a threshold that does not reopen once it closes. Stay until the very last word of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the exact decree that cancels every assignment the enemy has launched against this chapter of your life. I am going to show you the precise moment this week where you unknowingly activated something massive in the spirit. And at the end, we are going to seal this new season shut with a declaration that the enemy cannot contest. Do not leave. Your future self did not come this far just to let you walk away before the verdict is read. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere has not just been heavy, it has been suffocating, like a pressure that has no name and no explanation, pressing down on every area of your life simultaneously. Maybe you were lying in bed this week, staring at the ceiling at 3:0 inches the morning, heart beating faster than it should, mind scanning through every decision you've made in the last 6 months, wondering where things went wrong. Or maybe you were sitting at a table surrounded by people and felt more alone than you have ever felt in a room full of voices smiling on the outside, while something deep in your chest was pulling toward a grief you couldn't explain. Or perhaps it was quieter than that. Maybe you simply woke up one morning this week and felt nothing. No fire, no direction, just a hollow stillness where the passion used to live. You feel suspended, not broken, not moving, just frozen between the promise you have been holding and the silence that has met every prayer you have sent upward. And in that suspension, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. Listen carefully, because you have heard this voice this week. He has been telling you that the reason everything feels stalled is not spiritual, it is personal. He has been replaying a moment in your mind on a loop. That moment when you stopped trying. That moment when you pulled back from someone you should have stayed present with. That moment when your faith wavered and you voiced the doubt out loud. The accuser has been telling you that because of that moment, the clock reset, that you have disqualified yourself, that the blessing is delayed because of your failure. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Romans 8:28 declares, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Not some things, not the clean things, not the moments you got it right. All things. That moment you think disqualified you is inside the word all. God did not exempt your failure from his plan. He wove it into it. The enemy wants you to believe you are in a cycle. He wants you convinced that you are beginning a new lap around the wilderness because of what you did. He needs you to believe this, because if you understand the truth, his assignment collapses entirely. You are not in a cycle, you are in a conclusion. The pressure you have been feeling is not the weight of punishment, It is the weight of arrival. It is the sensation of a promise that has been in transit for years, finally entering your atmosphere. What feels like suffocation is actually compression, the kind that happens right before something is launched. You thought the silence was abandonment. Heaven calls it preparation. You thought the stillness was stagnation. The Most High calls it positioning. You thought the moment you pulled back was surrender. But that restraint, that specific act of choosing stillness over retaliation, of choosing silence over war, that was the move that tipped the scales. That was the action that signed the eviction notice on the enemy's assignment against your life. You did not delay your destiny in that moment. You delivered it. In the next 24 hours, one of two things will happen. Either you will wake up tomorrow morning with the same silence, the same heaviness, the same distance from God, or you will wake up to a prophetic word written as if God is speaking directly to your situation. That is what the inner sanctum delivers. Every morning, for 365 days, both paths are available right now, but only one of them is still open. Check the first pinned comment before this video ends. Before we go any further, if this message is already speaking to something deep inside you, there's a guide that was created specifically for people in this season. It's called The Chosen One's Survival Guide, and it walks you through everything we're about to unpack today, in a format you can return to again and again. The link is in the description. Get it. You'll want it for where you're going. Now stay with me, because what I'm about to say next is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about why your life looks the way it does right now. Not adjust your perspective slightly. Not offer you a new angle. Completely reframe it from the foundation up. Because what you have been interpreting as evidence of failure is actually evidence of something else entirely, and until you can see it clearly, you will keep responding to your season in ways that work against the very thing heaven is trying to accomplish in you. Most people assume that stillness means stagnation. They look at the people around them moving, building, posting, celebrating, and then they look at their own life, quiet, uncertain, suspended, and they conclude that something must be wrong with them, that God has forgotten them, that they missed a moment they can't get back. They scroll through the highlight reels of other people's progress, and they feel the sting of comparison settle into their chest like a stone. They watch doors open for people who seem less prepared, less faithful, less serious about the things of God, and something in them begins to quietly unravel. A voice begins to whisper that maybe they aren't as chosen as they thought. Maybe the promises were poetic but not prophetic. Maybe the vision was just wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual language. And that conclusion, that quiet, creeping belief that the silence around your life is proof of divine indifference, is the very thing that has been keeping them locked in a cycle they were never meant to live in. Here is what you need to understand. The season you are in right now is not a punishment, it is a preparation. And there is a difference so profound between those two things that once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it. Punishment takes from you. Preparation adds to you, even when it feels like subtraction. Even when everything seems to be falling away, what's actually happening is that heaven is removing from your hands what you would have used at the wrong time, in the wrong place, for the wrong reasons. And that removal, as painful as it is one of the most intentional acts of divine love you will ever experience. A surgeon's scalpel cuts, but the cutting is not cruelty. It is the most precise form of care. And what God is doing in this season is surgery, the kind that requires you to be still, the kind that cannot happen while you are moving, the kind that is making you whole in chambers of your being that have never been touched before. Think about David. Before he ever wore a crown, he wore obscurity. He was overlooked by his own father, passed over by the very people who should have seen him first. When Samuel came to Jesse's house to anoint the next king of Israel, Jesse didn't even call David in from the field. He presented every other son, the tall ones, the strong ones, the ones who looked the part, and God rejected them all. And only then, almost as an afterthought, was David summoned. But here is what the text doesn't highlight loudly enough. David was in the field tending sheep, while his brothers were inside being considered for greatness. He was doing the invisible work. He was faithful in the place no one was watching. He was killing lions and bears in the wilderness with no audience, no applause, no documentation of his courage. There was no one recording his faithfulness, no one validating his anointing, no one whispering to him that what he was doing mattered. He simply showed up day after day in the unglamorous place and did what was required with his whole heart. And that faithfulness, not his talent, not his courage, not even his anointing, that faithfulness was what made him ready. You are in your field right now. And I know it feels like you've been forgotten. I know it feels like the world is moving forward and you are standing still in a place that seems to have no relevance to the future you've been shown. But you haven't been forgotten. You've been positioned, and there is a vast critical difference between those two things. Forgotten means the plan fell apart. Positioned means the plan is still intact. You just can't see the full blueprint from where you're standing. The field is not the failure. The field is the school. And what is being developed in you right now, in this quiet, in this obscurity, in this season of invisible labor, it is the very infrastructure of everything that is coming. But here's where it goes deeper, because positioning is only part of what's happening. The other part, the part most people never talk about, is the internal reconstruction that has to occur before the external assignment can begin. God is not just preparing your circumstances, He is preparing you. And those are two completely different projects with two completely different timelines. Your circumstances can change overnight, but your character, the deep internal architecture of who you are, that takes time, that takes pressure. That takes the kind of sustained, uncomfortable, refining heat that most people pray their way out of before it finishes its work. And when you pray your way out of a season before it has completed its purpose, you don't escape the process, you just delay it. Because God is faithful not only to His promises, but to His process, and the process will circle back until the work is done. Your character has to be able to sustain what your calling is about to produce, and if the weight of what's coming were placed on the version of you that existed 2 years ago, it would crush you. Not because you were weak, but because you weren't yet anchored. The deeper the roots go, the higher the tree can grow without being toppled. Think about the sequoia tree, one of the largest living things on Earth, capable of standing through centuries of storms and seasons. Its strength is not primarily in its height. It is in its root system, which spreads wide and deep and intertwines with the roots of other sequoias beneath the surface, creating a network of support that is invisible to anyone standing above ground. And right now, in this quiet, in this stillness, in this season that feels like it is going nowhere, your roots are going down into ground that most people never find because they left the field too soon. They got uncomfortable with the process and mistook the depth of the digging for the absence of growth. But you are growing, just not in the direction that's visible yet. And this leads us to something that I want you to sit with for a moment, because it is one of the most misunderstood principles in the entire journey of a chosen person. Delay is not denial. Say that again, inside yourself. Let it move through you slowly and find the places in your heart where the opposite has been operating as a silent belief. Delay is not denial. What feels like a closed door is often a sealed chamber, and sealed chambers are where the most sacred things are preserved. Think of the Holy of Holies. It wasn't accessible to everyone. It wasn't even accessible at all times. It required preparation, consecration, and a specific appointed moment. The high priest didn't enter whenever he felt ready. He entered when the requirements were met, when the purification was complete, when the divine timing aligned. The presence inside that chamber didn't move because of human impatience. It moved according to divine order. And what is being preserved in your sealed season right now is something so significant, so sacred, so strategically important to the purposes of heaven that access to it cannot be rushed without consequence. The sealing is not rejection, it is protection. It is the hand of God saying, "Not yet," because not yet is not never. Not yet is I am making sure that when this opens, you are ready to receive everything that's inside without being destroyed by the weight of it. Coming up, the hidden thing you've been doing that is actually extending your delay without you even realizing it. Stay with me, because this is the part that changes everything. But before we get there, I need you to understand what's happening in the spiritual atmosphere around your life right now, because the silence you've been experiencing isn't empty. It only feels empty from your vantage point. From heaven's perspective, that silence is one of the most active environments that exists. It is full of warfare, full of realignment, full of a heavenly recalibration that is working on your behalf, even when you cannot feel it, even when you cannot see it, even when every natural indicator suggests that nothing is happening. There are assignments being cancelled in the invisible realm that would have destroyed you in the visible one. There are traps that looked like opportunities being dismantled before you ever reached them. There are connections being dissolved that looked like blessings but were actually anchors, weights disguised as gifts, relationships that carried the appearance of promotion but would have pulled you beneath the water the moment the season shifted. There are versions of your future that are being closed off, not because God is withholding good things, but because He is withholding lesser things to make room for greater ones. And that distinction matters more than you know, because a God who withholds the lesser to deliver the greater is not a God who is holding out on you. He is a God who loves you too much to let you settle. The enemy's greatest strategy against a chosen person is not to attack them directly, it is to make them move prematurely. Because a chosen person who moves before their time is like a seed that breaks ground in winter. It surfaces with excitement, it feels like momentum, and then the frost comes, and what could have been something magnificent is exposed and vulnerable and underdeveloped. The potential was real, the vision was legitimate, but the timing was off, and timing in the kingdom is everything. Ecclesiastes tells us that there is a time and a season for every purpose under heaven, not just every event, but every purpose. And the violation of divine timing doesn't just delay the purpose, it damages the vessel carrying it. And so the warfare you have been experiencing, the confusion, the restlessness, the urgency you can't fully explain, the sense that you need to do something, anything. Right now, some of that is not just human emotion. Some of it is a spiritual pressure campaign specifically designed to make you break rank and move before the appointed time. The enemy doesn't need you to fall into obvious sin. He just needs you to move one step ahead of God. Because a step ahead of God is a step outside of His covering, and a step outside of His covering is a step into exposure you were never designed to survive alone. But you won't move prematurely, because you are still here, you are still watching, you are still listening, and that itself is an act of warfare. Every day you remain in position, every morning you choose faith over fear, every moment you choose trust over control. You are fighting a battle that most people don't even recognize is happening. Staying when everything in you wants to run, that is not passivity, that is obedience. And obedience in the waiting place is one of the most powerful spiritual weapons that exists. It says to heaven, "I believe in what I cannot see." It says to the enemy, "You do not have the authority to rush me out of what God has placed me in." It says to your own flesh, "We are not leading this." And that declaration, made quietly in the privacy of your faithfulness, reshapes the atmosphere around your life in ways that will become visible only when the season turns. Now, let's talk about what you've been doing, because this is the part that requires honesty. And I say this not to condemn you, but to free you, because freedom always starts with clarity, and clarity sometimes feels uncomfortable before it feels liberating. One of the things that extends the waiting season, that adds unnecessary length to what was already an intentional pause, is the habit of seeking confirmation from people who were never assigned to your vision. When God gives you a glimpse of what's coming, it is not meant to be broadcast before it is built. It is seed, and seed is one of the most vulnerable things in nature, full of potential, full of life, but completely dependent on the right conditions to become what it was designed to be. Seed placed in the wrong soil doesn't just fail to grow, it gets stolen, it gets ridiculed, it gets spoken over with doubt and unbelief from people who genuinely love you but cannot see what you see, because they were not given the same revelation. And that doubt, even when it's spoken with good intentions, even when it comes from people who want the best for you, carries a spiritual weight. Words are not neutral. They create atmospheres. And an atmosphere of unbelief around a seed that hasn't yet broken ground can be enough to prevent it from ever becoming what it was designed to be. Joseph told his dream too soon. Not because he was wrong about what he saw, he was exactly right, but because the timing of the telling created a resistance that lengthened his journey to the very destination the dream promised. His brothers didn't hate him because he was a dreamer. They hated him because his dream confronted their smallness. His vision made visible the distance between where they were and where he was going, and that exposure ignited something in them that ultimately placed him in a pit, then a prison, before it placed him in a palace. The dream was never wrong, but the revelation of the dream before its time introduced opposition that could have been avoided. And every time you share your vision prematurely with people whose capacity cannot hold it, you invite into your atmosphere a spiritual opposition that was never supposed to be part of your story. You give ammunition to voices that should never have had access to your assignment. So guard what God has shown you. Treat it like a treasure that requires protection, not a trophy that requires display. Let it grow in the dark before you bring it into the light. Not forever, but for now. There is a time for declaration, and there is a time for concealment, and wisdom knows the difference between them. The oak tree doesn't announce itself while it is still an acorn beneath the soil. It simply grows, it anchors, it pushes through the darkness in the right direction, and when the time comes, when the roots are deep enough and the structure is strong enough, it rises. And no one has to announce it, because its presence is undeniable. That is where you are going. But you have to protect the process that gets you there. And this brings us to something most people miss entirely. The isolation you have been feeling, the sense that your circle has shrunk, that relationships have shifted, that people who used to be present have quietly faded. That is not rejection. That is divine editing. God is a master editor, and He is removing from your life everything that cannot survive the frequency of where you are going. Not because those people are bad, not because you are better than anyone, but because every next-level version of a life requires a different supporting structure. The scaffolding that holds a single-story building cannot support a skyscraper, and some of the relationships that carried you through earlier seasons simply were not built to carry the weight of what's being built in you now. God, in His mercy, is making the adjustments so that when the building rises, it doesn't take people with it who were never meant to go that high. And some of those people were only written into your story for a season, not a destination. Their chapter ended. That doesn't erase their value. It just clarifies their role. The loneliness of this season is real. I am not going to minimize it or dress it up with spiritual language that bypasses the genuine ache of it. The loss of community, the shifting of relationships, the quieting of what used to be a full and active social landscape that is a real grief, and grief deserves to be acknowledged. But underneath the loneliness is something you haven't fully received yet, the invitation into deeper intimacy with the source itself. When the scaffolding of human connection is temporarily removed, what's left is you and God. And it is in that stripped-down space, uncomfortable as it is, as unfamiliar as it feels, that the most defining conversations of your life take place. Abraham was called out of Ur and into a land he hadn't seen. Moses encountered the burning bush in the wilderness, alone. Elijah heard the still, small voice, not in the crowd, not in the noise, but in the cave after the fire and the earthquake had passed. The pattern is consistent throughout the narrative of Scripture. The most sacred encounters happen in the most isolated places. Not because isolation is the goal, but because isolation removes the interference. It is where identity gets clarified, where calling gets sharpened, where the voice of the Most High becomes the loudest sound in the room, because all the other noise has finally been cleared away. And what He speaks to you in that place, what He deposits in the cave, in the field, in the wilderness, becomes the unshakable foundation of everything that follows. Coming up, the unexpected thing that's been disguised as spiritual progress, but has actually been slowing your breakthrough. Most people never catch it, but you need to hear this. But first, this has to land. You are being rebuilt, not abandoned. Every place in your life that feels like ruins right now is actually a construction site. And construction sites are loud, messy, disorienting, and completely unrecognizable from what they're becoming. They look nothing like the finished structure during the process. The ground is torn up, the materials are scattered, the machinery is loud and disruptive, and the whole landscape looks worse, not better. Someone who doesn't know what a construction site is trying to become would look at it and see only destruction. But someone who has seen the blueprint knows that the disruption is purposeful. Every piece of mess has a place in the plan. You cannot look at a building mid-construction and accurately judge its final form. And you cannot look at your life in this moment and accurately judge where it is heading. The scaffolding is not the structure. The chaos is not the conclusion. What looks like collapse is often just the removal of the old foundation so that something permanent can be laid in its place, something that will not shift when the storms come, because it was built on bedrock rather than on the sand of what felt comfortable and familiar. Think of Nehemiah standing before the broken walls of Jerusalem. He had heard of the ruins. He had wept over them in prayer. He had asked God for favor and received it. And then he went and saw the walls for himself at night, alone, on horseback, surveying the full extent of what had been lost. Everyone around him saw ruins. What he saw was a blueprint. And the difference between those two visions, ruin and blueprint, determined what happened next. The people who saw ruins sat down in despair and concluded that restoration was impossible. The man who saw a blueprint picked up a tool and started building. He organized the workers. He stationed guards against the opposition. He held a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other, and he refused to let the resistance of his enemies redefine the reality of what God had commissioned. You are standing before the broken places in your own life right now. What are you seeing? Because what you choose to see in this moment will determine whether this season becomes a graveyard or a gateway. The ruins are real, but they are not the final word. And the God who rebuilds walls also rebuilds lives, and He does it with the same precision, the same intentionality, and the same committed love. Now, here is the thing that has been disguised as spiritual progress, and I need you to stay with me, because this one requires honesty that most people aren't ready for. And the reason most people aren't ready for it is because it is so easy to miss. It sits so close to genuine faith that the two can look identical from the outside. One of the most subtle traps in the life of a chosen person is what I call performative surrender. It is when you say all the right things. I trust God. I'm in His hands. I'm at peace with wherever he leads. But underneath those declarations, there is still a grip. Still a white-knuckled hold on the outcome you wanted. Still a secret negotiation happening in the quiet of your heart, where you've told God you'll trust him, but only if he moves in a specific way, on a specific timeline, with a specific result that looks something like the version of the plan you had already drawn up in your own imagination. And when he doesn't move in that way, on that timeline, toward that result, the peace evaporates. The declarations feel hollow, and the cycle of striving restarts, even though it's dressed in the language of surrender. That is not surrender, that is management disguised as faith. And it is one of the primary reasons that certain doors remain closed, not because heaven isn't listening, but because you haven't yet released control over what you claim to have placed in heaven's hands. An open hand receives. A clenched fist, no matter how many times it declares trust, remains closed. And God, who is a gentleman of the highest order, will not pry open what you are holding onto. He will wait. And his waiting is not punitive, it is patient. It is the patience of a father who knows that when you finally open your hand, what he places in it will be so far beyond what you were gripping that you will wonder why it took you so long to let go. True surrender is terrifying. It is the moment you stop managing and start trusting in a way that has no safety net, no backup plan, no private clause hidden in the prayer that says, "Unless it doesn't work out the way I hoped." It is the moment you say not as a formula, not as a spiritual-sounding phrase you repeat until it loses all meaning, but as a genuine act of the will, in the full weight of your uncertainty and your fear and your exhaustion, that you will accept whatever form the goodness of God takes, even if it doesn't look like what you expected. Even if the breakthrough comes through a path you never would have chosen, even if the redirection takes you somewhere that initially feels like loss. That level of surrender is not weakness. It is the most courageous thing a human being can do. And it is the precise moment, not an approximate moment, not a season later, but the precise moment that heaven begins to move without restraint on your behalf. And yet, and this is where we enter something most people are not prepared to hear, because it requires a level of self-awareness that is uncomfortable and a level of honesty that takes courage even deeper than the grip of control, is something that has been operating beneath the surface of your entire waiting season. Something that has been hidden not from God, but from you. And the reason it's been hidden is because it wears the costume of virtue. It presents itself as humility. It presents itself as wisdom. It even quotes scripture to justify its presence. But at its root, it is fear. Not the obvious fear, not the fear of failure or the fear of rejection, which are at least recognizable and therefore somewhat navigable. Something quieter than that. Something that lives in a deeper room. The fear of becoming who God says you are. Because that sounds impossible, doesn't it? Who would be afraid of their own destiny? But think about it honestly. Think about it with the kind of brutal transparency that this moment is asking of you. If you fully step into what God has called you to, your entire life restructures, not just your circumstances, you. The architecture of your identity shifts. The relationships that were built around a smaller version of you can no longer hold the same shape. The roles you have been comfortable playing, the one who struggles, the one who almost makes it, the one who is full of potential but hasn't quite arrived, those roles disappear. And with them disappears the safety of being unseen. Because as long as you haven't fully stepped into your calling, you haven't yet had to carry the full weight of it. You haven't had to face the scrutiny that comes with visibility. You haven't had to navigate the loneliness that comes with operating at an altitude where fewer people can breathe. And some part of you, deep, ancient, protective, is afraid of exactly that. Afraid of the distance that greatness creates, afraid of the loneliness at the top, afraid of the responsibility that comes with the anointing. afraid that if you truly become who heaven says you are, you will lose what little familiarity you still have left. Moses stood at the burning bush at the site of a miracle, in the presence of the living God, and asked God to send someone else. He offered his speech impediment. He offered his criminal record. He offered every disqualifying evidence he could find, not because he doubted God's power, because he doubted that God's choice could actually be him. And that doubt, that deep identity-level fear that says, "Surely you must mean someone else," is the final wall between where you are and where you are going. It is not the enemy that is holding the door closed from the outside. It is the version of you that is standing on the inside, still negotiating with smallness, still rehearsing the list of reasons why God should reconsider, still holding your limitations up as evidence that he chose the wrong person for the assignment he's been preparing you for. But he didn't choose the wrong person. He chose you, fully knowing your limitations, not despite them, but in full awareness of them, fully aware of every detour, every failure, every moment you gave up and started over, every time you said yes and then retreated, every wound you're still carrying, and every chapter you're still ashamed of, fully present in every moment you thought disqualified you. He chose you anyway, not despite your story, but through it. Because the very things you think make you unworthy are the things that make you relatable to the people you are about to be sent to. The people who need what you carry are not looking for someone who has never struggled. They are looking for someone who has struggled and survived and found something worth standing on. Your wound becomes your message. Your wilderness becomes your wisdom. Your waiting becomes the very thing that authenticates every word you will speak on the other side of this season, not because you figured it all out, but because you stayed when you had every reason to leave. And what you found in the staying is the very thing that someone else needs to hear. And here is the final thing, the thing that reframes everything we've walked through today, the thing that I want you to carry forward from this moment into every uncertain morning that follows. You have been asking God when. When is this going to move? When is the breakthrough coming? When will this season end? And that question is completely understandable. It is human. It is honest, and God is not offended by it. He heard it from David in the Psalms. He heard it from Habakkuk at the watchtower. He heard it from every prophet who ever stood between a promise and its fulfillment and felt the weight of the gap. But here is what heaven has not been asking. Heaven has not been asking when. Heaven has been asking who. Who will you be when it arrives? Who will you have become in the waiting? Who will you choose to be in the moment between the promise and the fulfillment, in the place where faith has no evidence to stand on except the character of the one who made the promise? Because the arrival of everything that has been promised to you is not waiting on a calendar date. It is not waiting on a set of circumstances to align. It is waiting on a version of you, a version that has been tested and has held, a version that has been stripped and has remained, a version that has looked into the emptiness of the waiting place and chosen trust over despair, obedience over impulse, faith over sight. And that version, shaped by everything this season has required of you, forged in the fire of everything you endured without quitting, is closer than it has ever been. The sitting down was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of your formation. And formation is always the precursor to release. The caterpillar does not fight its way out of the cocoon early. It stays in the pressure until the pressure has done what the pressure was designed to do, until the wings are strong enough to carry the weight of what comes next. And when it emerges, it does not emerge as a slightly improved version of what went in. It emerges as something entirely new. That is what is happening to you. This is not a setback, this is a metamorphosis. And you are closer to the emerging than you have ever been. So, before you close this out today, place your hand over your heart and speak this with me. I release the need to control what I was never meant to carry. I release the fear of becoming who God has already declared me to be. I break agreement with every lie that told me this silence meant abandonment. I declare that my waiting has not been wasted. It has been working. I am rooted. I am being rebuilt. I am prepared in places no one can see yet. I receive the strength to stay in my appointed place until heaven says move. And when it says move, I will be ready. Because I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not broken. I am chosen. I am being formed. And what is about to hit my life is not random. It is the result of everything this season was building in me. I step forward in faith, in surrender, and in the full expectation that my appointed moment is already on its way. If this message reached you today, don't let it leave without taking root. Share it with someone who is in the waiting place right now. Leave a comment and tell me what shifted for you, because your testimony in the comments is a lifeline for someone else who is watching and doesn't yet believe that their season is turning. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because what's coming to this channel is part of the same thing God is doing in your life right now. You didn't find this by accident. Stay connected. Your breakthrough is not coming. It's already in motion.